Hey guys, what's going on? We got a plus 21 Throne of the Tides here. I'm playing Enhancement Shaman. I have a couple of guildies with me and then a pug tank. So this went fairly well. I think this first pull went kind of chaos because he really went ham, but other than that, yeah. So just like the other Mythic Plus videos, I'm going to break down the dungeon mechanics and then explain some enhancement mechanics that you can do at the same time. So if you're needing to learn the dungeon, this is perfect for you, hopefully. But anyways, let's get started. So the affixes we're dealing with this week are fortified, volcanic, and spiteful. What that means is trash mobs are 25% stronger, I think. Volcanic spawns little volcanoes under your feet. After a short period of time, they'll erupt and cause you to be knocked up in the air if you are standing on them. Spiteful causes ghosts to appear when specific units die. Generally, it's all of them except for like minion types or small types. Generally, non-elites will not generate a spiteful, and you want to run away from them. Over time, they will lose their HP rapidly, so you can root, CC, whatever you want. If they get to you, they will auto attack you for quite a lot of damage, so be careful. But yeah, so for this first pull, there was a bunch of units called dragoons, or as I like to call them, dogs. Basically, every time they auto attack, they cause a bleed effect. So it's very dangerous for your tank. On top of that, they also fixate on a random target sometimes. So what that means is you have to be careful and you have to run away. Stunning them does help, but it does not remove the fixate. So you have to pay attention to that. The other ones here is we got two different type of casters. So we have an oracle and I don't remember what the other one is. Basically, one casts a heal effect and one casts a lightning dot. Now what that's going to do is the lightning dot is dispellable and the heal is interruptible. They also cast water bolt and lightning bolt, so you want to interrupt those as much as you can because they will be targeting random people in your party. The most important mob right here is the Sentinel. This guy does two things. A tank buster known as Shell Breaker causes you to take 50% increased physical damage over the duration. The next one is Crushing Depths. So this can be spell reflected if you are a warrior, but if it gets on you, use a defensive because one, it's going to tick for a lot of damage. Two, it's not dispellable. And three, it's a healing absorb, so your healer has to heal you through it. So that's one thing you have to be ready for. As an enhancement shaman, you can help out by healing yourself and by using a defensive. If you see it coming out, you can also just use ancestral guidance, so that way you don't have to spend healing. You can just do damage and heal at the same time. Here we have the Najatar Ravager. This one does two things. Acid barrage, as you see there. So you want to spread out around. You can't technically dodge it unless you're spread out around because it's a blast cone. The other one is the volatile orb or whatever. I don't remember what exactly it's called, but basically she throws a circle on the ground of toxicness. So you want to basically move out of that. Also, if you have Spiteful this week in Throne of the Tides, kill the Spiteful or you can't go up the teleporter. But overall, this dungeon is actually a really good dungeon. It's definitely one of the tough ones because of the amount of casting and mechanics on each of the mobs. But I definitely enjoy this dungeon. It has great mechanics, not too many to where you're overwhelmed, and they're not too much of a joke to cause it to be a free dungeon. You know what I mean? It's more fun when you have something you have to do rather than just sit there and smash buttons. So here we're dealing with two witches. The Tempest Witch is the Lightning Lady, and the Oracle. So the Tempest Witch put a dot on Vigrum if you had saw it, and the healer dispelled right away because it's an AoE pulse. So if you get it, just move out of the group or possibly just move away or out of the way of people, and let your healer dispel you. Um, so here we have 2 of the sentinels. This is a very important part. Double shell breaker on the tank. That is very dangerous if you are a tank, so you can either be lucky if you parry both, or you can just use a pretty high quality defensive. But as you see here, 2 crushing depths went out. Vigrim reflected one, and now it's on the sentinel, and it's actually ticking for quite a lot of damage, as you can see on the damage meters. Vigrim is just constantly going up, up, up on the damage amount. The other one went on the paladin, which the monk instantly healed off. It's very important. It can get out of hand pretty quick, and if you fall behind, you'll never catch back up, unfortunately. But this is probably the toughest part of the whole dungeon, right? Or second toughest, sorry. This little area, there is a Ravager that patrols around the room in a circle. There is this 3-pack, and then the 6-pack back there, or 5-pack, I guess. 2 dragoons, 2 casters, and a sentinel. Or not a sentinel, sorry. I don't know what the other guy is. But the melee guys don't do anything other than attack your tank, so don't worry about them. Um, but yeah, this is the toughest room. And the reason why is because you have so many things patrolling around. You have dragoons in the back, you have the Ravager going. So you have to LOS this pack. So as soon as your tank pulls, get behind the wall. Don't stand in the opening. It doesn't help because the casters want to cast on anything in their sight. So here you want to make sure you're interrupting the bolts from the casters. You want to use your stuns when the dragoons cast their pursuit. Even though it won't remove the pursuit, it will just stop them from attacking in general. So use any form of knock-up. So your thunderstorm is really good. Blinding light from paladin, leg sweep from monk, shockwave from warrior. You know, any form of CC. Try not to overlap. A good add-on to get is called Omni CD, which allows me to see all the defensives and stuff of my teammates, and you can select more spells on which you want to look at. I recently just had to do a reinstall of WoW like completely because it was running terribly. So I still have some adjustments to make to some of my add-ons. But overall, this dungeon is a lot of fun. Um, there's only these mechanics, and then once you get into the second half, which is after the second boss, uh, then the mobs start changing. But for this first section to the first boss, all the mobs are the same. So as you see, we got a big group of dragoons here. So I drop a static totem right away, just to make sure they don't get much of an auto attack off. And then now we're just trying to burst them down as fast as possible because these things can get out of hand. The tech it takes a lot as soon as you get to about 3 stacks. It's a nightmare. Also, you can see I got hit by one of the spitefuls, which hurt a lot. They are definitely a nightmare in this dungeon, especially with the mob count. As for percentages, this place doesn't have much of a leeway. You can skip one of these 3-packs on the sides. As you can see on the far end, there's another pack of these casters. You can skip these if you want, but the second boss does require a bit of room for his mechanics. I typically, when I tank this, I like to pull this whole room just to get it done. Don't have to worry about it. But if you have a group that you can count on to not screw up the second boss, then you can definitely go ahead and skip that. But this here is another pack. You got 2 of the melee guys, you got 2 casters and a sentinel. Again, just make sure you're kicking, interrupting, stunning the casters, making sure they don't get much casts off, and watching the sentinel for his crushing depths. Very, very important. You can definitely die pretty fast, so just make sure you're helping your healer if they need it. If not, just keep doing damage. It's the best way to pump. But on to Lady Najjar. Nazjar? Nazjar. Okay. Yeah, sure. Um, Fairly simple mechanics, just a kind of a lot of chaos. So she's going to be casting Water Bolt consistently through the entire encounter. The second mechanic is this Focus Tempest. This hits one target and then cleaves onto, I believe, three others. Now, the primary target takes the most damage, the off targets take less damage. Then she has this Shock Blast, which is an AoE, so you run out, spawn the lightning orbs. If you touch those lightning orbs, you take a stun and quite a bit of damage, so just avoid them, pretty simple. And then she does geysers, which you will see a lot in this phase. In this high tide phase, as you can see, she spawns a whole bunch of ads. The primary ones you want to watch for are the casters. Again, they'll be spamming Frostbolt at you, so just interrupt them. The big guy there doesn't really do a heck of a lot other than a small frontal, but I haven't found it do too much damage, so just be wary of it basically. But the biggest problem is all the swirlies on the ground. If you get hit by one, you will get knocked up, and most likely you will be one shot, unfortunately. But if you do survive, just be ready to get the heck out of the way of the next one, because you will definitely have one under you. Doesn't It seems to just spawn very, very close, and it's all over the room. There's barely any room, as you can see, but if you have a Death Knight, or if you are a Death Knight, grip the casters in. I typically like to go to one caster side and grip them in from the opposite side, but it really depends on how your tank wants to pull. It definitely makes this part a much simpler mechanic, especially because Death Knight, when you grip it in, you don't have to chase it around and you don't have to interrupt it. Or you can take a form of knockback, like if you're a dragon or something and you have a push, you could take that and push the mobs into a group. And you want to stack on your tank as much as possible for the ad phase, because the little gremlin guys are going to be jumping all over the place. That makes it impossible for the tank to get aggro if you are on the other side of the room. But on to boss number 2, Commander Ulthok. So these bosses are back to back, and this guy is usually when you want to lust, because you want to lust the first pull of the dungeon. Now, this guy has 3 mechanics. One is Bubbling Fissure, I think is what it's called. Yes, it is. Well, I guess he has 4 because of the tank mechanic, but Bubbling Fissure spawns a shadow puddle on the ground, as you will see. There's a swirly, you move out. Mechanic number 2 is the Shadow Stomp, which is Festering Shockwave. Basically, he's going to knock you back and put a dot on you. Try not to get knocked into somewhere you don't want to go. Third mechanic is Awaken Ooze. Basically, it spawns those little blobs. If you hit them, they will get knocked back slightly and pause for a moment and then start their fixate once again. So basically, if you're a monk, just spinning crane kick. If you have any like spammable, really fast AoE, just spam it on them and they will stay knocked back. Dots do not knock them back, so be wary of that. And the fourth mechanic, which is the tank mechanic, is Crushing Claw. That makes your tank take a significantly more physical damage. It works. It does do a lot of damage, but if you parry or block it, it seems to be irrelevant almost. So, but yeah, the most important part is making sure you're placing these blobs in a good spot and keeping those blobs from getting to you, because the shadow will overwhelm you eventually. And don't get knocked back into them. And the hardest part of the dungeon, I'm just kidding, this is probably the easiest part, but I still die here, as you'll see. Oh, I didn't die. So these little eel guys do a shockwave in front, stun you. If you die here, do not release until someone gets to the bottom. And the reason why is because right now, if nobody's at the bottom, the respawn point is at the first boss. If you get to the bottom, the next respawn point is down here. So it just makes it much less of a work, or I guess it makes it much better. But on to the next section of the dungeon, which is on our way to Mindbender Gersha. Hope I said that right. So we got these Faceless Watchers. These guys are a pain, but the real menace is the Faceless Seer. He's going to do a Mind Seer, or Mind Flay, I guess. And then he's also going to spawn, like, if you see that void portal with the line, that silences you and hurts you, so be wary of that. The little squids just pulse AoE, so knock them up, stun them. The Faceless Watcher grips you in and does a slam, and then also does a tank buster. So when he grips you in, just run out of the circle. You have to start running right away or you will not make it out. He does not take very long to finish that cast. So as you see, we just got out and he smashed the ground. So it does not take long for him to finish that. But other than that, that's it for the mechanics on these guys. The most important part is watching your footing, interrupting as many of the pulsing AoEs, although they aren't that bad. But interrupting the seer, that is definitely the biggest thing. If Mind Flay goes off and continues to go off, your healer is not going to like you very much. But yeah, also you can get a bad overlap with the grip in and the line there. As you can see, it got pretty close, but it can grip you in and put you in that line at the same time. So just be wary of that. Pardon me. And then we got 2 mind flayers. And then at the end of this hallway, we have 2 of the watchers. So it just gets a bit more annoying. The biggest things here for Enhancement Shaman to do is bring your Thunderstorm. Make sure you should always have Cap Totem. You should also bring Poison Cleansing Totem. The reason why is in the next section of the dungeon, there will be poisons to dispel, and that makes it very, very helpful. But yeah, those are the 3 things I definitely recommend is bring your Thunderstorm, bring your Cap Totem, bring Poison Cleanse Totem. Very important. Wind Rush Totem is also good, or Earth Grab can be good too for the Spitefuls. But other than that, just bring the regular build. As you can tell, I am not running Sundering anymore. Um, and the reason for that is because I just find it doesn't bring enough to the table in damage wise. If the group lacked a CC, such as having I don't know what classes really lack AoE CC anymore, but if I thought, okay, well, we definitely need more interrupts, then I would have brought it because it is an interrupt effect. But I just find running without it much better. More output, especially for single target. I don't find it brings much value to AoE anymore, especially since we lost last year's 4-set. But with this new 4-set, we're just primal waving and dogs and spam. That's about it. But on to Mindbender Gersha. So this guy is pretty straightforward. He has a couple mechanics. The first one and the most important one is the Storm Fury totem. Now, what this causes to happen is the boss will start auto attacking super, super fast. And basically, it's the tank mechanic, so you have to kill the totem fast, or your tank will probably eventually die. Hopefully not, but it's better to kill it faster than not to kill it. The second one is Earth Fury. That causes swirlies to spawn under your feet and erupt. So just walk around slowly and, judge based on how fast they're going and don't be that guy that bolts all over the room making a mess of everything. Don't be that guy. It's not don't be that guy. The second or the third one is Flame Shock, which is the healer mechanic. So he will flame shock you and it will do a significant amount of damage. The healer does have to dispel, but he casts it so often that he can only get 1 of 2. So if you get flame shock, do wall or use your defensive if he can't dispel you because it's definitely going to hurt. As you see, it takes people down to half health pretty quick. But yeah, on to the last phase of this guy. So he's going to get the squid off of his head, and you're going to want to LOS this terrifying vision. Why? Because if it hits you, you will be feared and you will take a significant amount of damage. Most likely one-shot you at this point. But if you are a Death Knight, you can probably just AMS it. Any other class, I'd recommend LOSing. It's not worth dying over, to be honest. And he's almost dead. Should have committed. We didn't. But yeah, so on our way to the hardest hallway of the dungeon. Now, this one is very interesting and difficult to deal with, but nonetheless, it is definitely easier once your group figures out their rotation for CC and stuff. So the hardest part are the Aqua Blasters. I think they're called Aqua Mages. They're in the back. They're going to be casting Aqua Blast. You want to interrupt and CC. As for these guys, you'll see me die instantly because they all throw spear me. Uh, throw spear is sent on whoever they can see. And then they also do something called Poison Spear, which causes a poison dot to go on people. And that's where your Poison Cleanse Totem comes in. Very, very helpful. As you can see, I am not running it because I am not good at this game. I definitely recommend bringing it because it is important. It can get out of hand if you have like 6 poisons on everybody. But these tainted sentries are probably the biggest part of the whole dungeon. Basically, the little guys that you can see, the unstable corruptions, they explode and put a disease on you, which causes you to take more shadow damage. I died to double throw spear again. That sucks. But when these big sentries do swell, they explode for shadow damage consistently. So that's where issues can pop up. If you have too many small lads, the sentry can take out your group pretty fast. And also, you just focus down the sentry and take it out as fast as you can. It's very important. There are there's that sentry, another one right there, and then 2 at the gate of the final boss. The next part after the sentry is probably the hardest part of the dungeon if you don't have the CC for it. But as you can see, the sentry's on the other side of his patrol route, so we're just hanging out here, taking out the small ads while we wait for him to come back. Because those little ads spawn rapidly at that little water fountain there. It's a gauntlet, so it will not stop respawning. So you don't want to pull this guy in there, or you're gonna have infinite stacks of the debuff, which will cause you to wipe pretty quick. But yeah, if you want to save your defensive for just at the gate of the boss there, very important. But overall, the dungeon is simple once you know the mechanics. If you can work out a CC rotation, it's definitely so much easier. Like leg sweep, AoE grip, cap totem, knockup, whatever you can do, just stop these guys from casting. Makes life easier. If you see one about to go off, interrupt it if you can. As you can see, I just did there. Sundering would also be a very good option here. It's another interrupt in a sense. I would definitely if I didn't have the group I was in because I'm with 3 guildies, I probably would have ran Sundering. But I just find Sundering clutters up too much. But it does bring high utility to the group. So as you can see, we have a double swell sentry here. So you don't want to have any stacks when these are going off. Now, when these guys do die, they do spawn a bunch of the little ads. I think only one of them does, but yeah, if you have the debuff, make sure you use a defensive. And you want to use a defensive at the start of the first one because there will be a double one about halfway through the first cast. Very important to help out your healer as much as you can in these places, but our healer is doing an amazing job keeping us alive. But on to the last boss, the Puddle Man, Ozmat, but I don't think that's his name. Ozumat. Um, this guy gives people a lot of trouble, and that is because I'm not sure if they don't understand how the buff works, but I will explain it here. The first mechanic is going to be Blotting Barrage. Now what this does is it spawns ink on the ground that you have to clean up with the Cleansing Flux. Now as soon as you get this buff, you want to make sure you're standing in the center of the ink. Now, don't just run into it and then run out. Stand inside until the puddle completely disappears. Very, very important. As soon as you step out, it will start growing again if it's not gone. Now, if it does not disappear by the time the buff goes away, you have to deal with something that is ever increasing. Now, you want to make sure you always get it because as you see, the tank gets a tank buster and it can cause issues later on. So when you're standing in the ink, make sure it's all the way gone or else it will cause issues for the entire group. That is the most important part of this phase. There is a weak aura for it, which causes your system to drop your particle density so you can see everything better. I don't use that because I can see the puddles very clearly, but later in the fight, you'll have even more puddles to deal with. Try to stack them as close together as possible. Don't spread them all around the room. It does not work that way. It's really, really annoying to try and clean that. But as you can see, they're standing in the puddles, making sure they get all of them, because as soon as you miss one, causes a whole, yeah, see, one was missed there. So if this was tyrannical, that would have caused a huge downfall in the group. It would have sucked, and I don't know if we would have killed it, but we're very fortunate that he was at 10% and we killed him. And then we get a giant buff and beat the crap out of the octopus mouth. But yeah, that is it for the dungeon. So hopefully this helps you out with your future Throne of the Tides. As I said, it is one of the more difficult dungeons, but is 100% doable and very simple once you understand the mechanics and how to control them. But yeah, that is it. My build will be in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope this helps, and I will see you in the next one. Laters.